Welcome to the deep dive. We take a stack of your sources, notes, and research and basically boil it down to the essentials.
That's the plan. Our mission is to give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
Even on topics that might seem, a bit specialized.
And today, that specialized topic is the Pulsed Laser Deposition Systems market, or PLD for short. We've been digging into a pretty detailed market research report you sent over.
Right. It focuses specifically on this corner of high-tech manufacturing.
So our goal here is to unpack what that report says. The market size, what's driving growth, the challenges.
And where things seem to be headed. It sounds niche, but honestly, it's fundamental tech for a lot of modern innovation.
Absolutely. So let's start with the basics then. What exactly is pulsed laser deposition?
Okay. The source defines it as an advanced technique for depositing thin films.
Thin films, right. Think incredibly precise layers, sometimes just atoms thick.
So how does it work?
Well, the core process uses these high-energy laser pulses. They hit a solid target material.
And that hitting process, it's called ablation.
Exactly, ablation. It vaporizes just a tiny amount of that target material.
Okay, so you get this little cloud of vaporized stuff.
Yeah, plume, basically. And that plume travels through a vacuum chamber.
Needs to be a vacuum.
Yeah, crucial. And it deposits onto a substrate that's the surface you want to coat.
So what makes PLD special? Why use this method?
Control. The report really emphasizes this. You get exceptional control over the film's composition, its thickness, its uniformity. It's very precise.
And that precision lets you create materials with really specific properties.
Exactly. Which is why it's so valuable in sectors like semiconductors, electronics, energy storage, optics, even biomedicine.
Right, makes sense. Okay, so let's look at the market picture then. What are the numbers?
Okay, so according to this report, the global PLD systems market in 2025 is valued at USD 38.67 million.
38.67 million. And where is it headed?
It's projected to grow. The forecast is USD 50.92 million by 2033.
Okay, so what's the growth rate?
That works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 3.50% between 2025 and 2033.
3.5%. And the overall driver boosting sales.
The source points directly to the increased adoption of nanotechnology and nanomaterials across different industries.
Ah, that nanoscale connection again. That seems key, which brings us neatly to the specific drivers, right? Why is the market actually growing?
Yeah, let's dig into those. The first big one the report highlights is just the growing demand for advanced thin films themselves.
Okay, so industries need better coatings.
Exactly. Think electronics, optics, energy storage, medical devices. They all need coatings that perform better, are pure, have very specific qualities.
And PLD, with that precision we talked about,
is ideal for creating them, especially for newer stuff like flexible electronics, quantum materials, high-efficiency solar cells. The control is just unmatched for those applications.
Okay, driver number one, demand for advanced films. What's next?
Driver number two, rising use, specifically in the semiconductor and electronics industry.
Makes sense. They're always pushing the boundaries.
Right. Modern electronic components, things like MEMS, microelectromechanical systems, superconductors, they increasingly rely on these high-quality thin films.
And PLD delivers that quality.
Yes, its ability to create films with really exact composition and structure is perfect for, cutting-edge things. Nano devices, advanced optoelectronics, next-gen microelectronics.
The report mentioned flexible electronics and quantum computing here too.
Absolutely. Those are huge factors fueling demand alongside just general R&D investment in new materials.
Okay. The report also mentioned biomedical as a driver?
It did, yeah. Briefly. It didn't elaborate much in the text we have, but you can easily see the potential.
Yeah.
Precise coatings for implants, maybe medical sensors.
Yeah, lots of possibilities there. Now, you mentioned quantum materials earlier. The report flags that as a significant trend, right? Expansion in quantum materials and superconductors?
Yes, definitely.
No.
PLD is apparently a go-to technique for making the high-quality, superconducting, thin films, quantum dots, topological insulators, basically the building blocks for quantum computers.
Wow, okay, so it's really enabling that next wave of computing.
Seems like it. And advanced sensors, energy-efficient electronics too. The demand for next-gen semiconductors and high-temperature superconductors, or HTS.
That's driving PLD adoption.
Directly. Plus, you've got significant government and private money pouring into quantum technologies, which means more need for PLD systems.
It's literally building the future, layer by layer.
You could say that, yeah.
Oh.
And related to electronics, there's another key trend, increased use in flexible and wearable electronics.
Ah, like smartwatches, bendable phones.
Exactly. Medical wearables, smart textiles, foldable screens, they all need thin, flexible films that still perform really well.
And PLD is good for putting coatings on flexible stuff.
It is. It can deposit those precise, uniform coatings onto flexible substrates, which is great for making the sensors, the energy storage bits, the optoelectronics needed for all these smart consumer gadgets, healthcare monitors, IoT devices.
So the demand picture looks pretty strong, driven by some really cutting-edge tech.
Definitely. But it's not all smooth sailing. There are challenges.
And precision usually comes at a price, right?
That's the big one. The primary restraint the report points to is the high initial investment and the ongoing operational costs.
These systems sound complex.
They are. Sophisticated lasers, high vacuum chambers, precise control mechanisms. It all adds up to a hefty setup cost.
And it doesn't stop there.
No, you've got ongoing costs too. Maintenance, the energy they consume, plus you need highly skilled people to run and maintain them.
Which makes it tough for smaller players.
Yeah, particularly for smaller research organizations or SMEs. That financial barrier can be pretty significant.
Any other hurdles?
Well, there's competition. The report mentions other techniques like CVD chemical vapor deposition and PVD physical vapor deposition.
Yeah, how do they compare?
They can sometimes be more cost-effective, especially for larger-scale production runs. So they implicitly limit where PLD might be the first choice, particularly if extreme precision isn't the absolute top priority for that specific layer.
And any technical limitations with PLD itself?
The report does mention one: difficulty getting perfectly uniform deposition over very large substrate areas.
Ah, so scaling up can be tricky.
It can restrict its use in some high-volume manufacturing compared to, say, PVD, which can handle larger areas more easily sometimes.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's shift gears then and break down the market by segment, starting with the type of PLD system design.
Right. The report mainly looks at two types: combinatorial PLD and Nano PLD.
And which one's bigger right now?
Combinatorial PLD holds the largest share currently.
Why is that? What does combinatorial mean here?
It's all about speed and discovery. This type lets researchers deposit multiple different material compositions onto a single substrate at the same time.
Oh, wow. So you can test lots of variations really quickly.
Exactly. It's designed for high-throughput experimentation, super valuable for rapidly finding the best material mix for a new coating or exploring new quantum materials or superconductors. You can iterate much faster.
All right, speeds up R&D. Makes sense why it's dominant, but Nano PLD is the fastest growing.
It is, yeah. And that ties right back into those trends we discussed earlier: nanotechnology, quantum materials, miniaturization.
Because nano implies even greater precision.
Precisely. Nano PLD is all about depositing ultra-thin films with incredible accuracy control right down to the nanoscale.
Which you need for?
For the most advanced semiconductors, nanophotonics, specialized biomedical coatings, things where that atomic level control is absolutely critical. It lets you create these high-purity nanostructures needed for flexible electronics, better energy storage, next-gen sensors.
So the investment in nanoengineering is really pushing this segment.
Absolutely. Making Nano PLD a vital tool and driving its faster growth.
Okay, let's look inside the machine now, the components. What makes up the market there?
Well, the report shows that PLD targets, the actual materials being zapped by the laser, they hold the largest market share.
That figures. No target, no deposition.
Right. And they come in a huge variety: metals, oxides, nitrides, superconductors.
Yeah.
Whatever you need the final coating to be made of. Demand is high across semiconductors, optics, energy, and growing in those newer areas like biomedical, flexible electronics, quantum computing.
What else is significant component-wise?
PLD chambers are expanding rapidly as a segment.
The vacuum environment we talked about.
Exactly. They provide that essential controlled environment, maintaining the vacuum, managing gas flow, ensuring the plume deposits uniformly.
Yeah.
Critical for high-quality films, especially for sensitive stuff like semiconductors and nanomaterials.
And the demand is for more advanced chambers.
Yes, particularly for systems that can handle multiple targets or achieve ultra-high vacuum levels, driven again by energy storage, optoelectronics, quantum computing needs.
Any other key components mentioned?
The report also lists PLD substrate heaters. They control the temperature of the surface you're coating, which is important for film quality.
Okay. Temperature matters.
Definitely. And also PLD optical trains, basically the system of lenses and mirrors that precisely guides the laser beam onto the target. Each part plays its role.
Got it. So let's zoom out again. The global picture. Where's the action happening?
Hey, geographically, the report identifies North America as the dominant region right now.
How dominant?
Over 40% of the global revenue. That's about $14.31 million in 2025, growing steadily to around 2.3% CAGR.
And what's driving that leadership?
Mostly strong investment in semiconductors, quantum computing research, and nanotechnology R&D. Plus, you have very established industries there: electronics, aerospace, biomedical, and strong support from research institutions and government funding.
The U.S. leads there, I assume.
Yes, the U.S. is the largest chunk, followed by Canada and Mexico, each with slightly different growth rates reported.
Okay. What about Europe?
Europe's significant too. Holds over 30% of the market, around $11.21 million in 2025, and growing at about 2.6% CAGR.
Key sectors there.
Demand from aerospace, defense, biomedical, the UK is mentioned as strong there, and Germany, driven by high-performance coating needs in its semiconductor and automotive sectors.
But the fastest growth isn't in North America or Europe.
No, the real growth story, according to the report, is Asia-Pacific, projected fastest growth with a 6.0% CAGR.
6%? That's quite a jump.
It is. They currently hold around 23% of the market, roughly $9.28 million in 2025.
And why such rapid growth there?
It's attributed to the region's just incredible pace in consumer electronics, semiconductors, nanotechnology development. Massive investments are happening in flexible electronics, advanced coatings, quantum computing R&D.
Plus the manufacturing base.
Exactly. Huge manufacturing base, rising R&D spending, and active government initiatives supporting these advanced technologies. China, Japan, South Korea, India are all highlighted as major contributors. India, interestingly, shows the highest CAGR within the region in the report.
Wow. Okay. Any quick mentions for other regions?
Yeah, the report covers them too. South America has a bit over 5% share, growing at 3.8%. Brazil is noted for wear-resistant coatings. Argentina for research use.
Middle East and Africa.
Middle East is around 2%, growing 4.0%. Think infrastructure coatings, energy tech in places like Qatar, manufacturing in Turkey. Africa is about 1%, 3.2% growth, with Nigeria mentioned for biomedical coatings focus.
So a truly global market, but with clear hotspots and growth trajectories. What about the companies involved, the competitive landscape?
Sounds like a space where innovation is key. Major companies are focused on tech breakthroughs, strategic alliances. The report lists names like Nanotech, Blue Wave Semiconductors, Neosera, Coherent, Sienda Omicron, Kurt J. Lesker Company. Quite a few players.
And what sets them apart?
R&D capability seems crucial. Expertise in those key application areas like semiconductors and quantum materials, and the ability to customize systems for specific research or production needs.
The source also mentions some recent developments.
Yeah, a couple of interesting ones. In March 2024, Lam Research unveiled a new system called Pulsed.
What's special about it?
It's described as the first production-oriented PLD tool, specifically designed for making next-gen MEMS components, things like RF filters and microphones for phones.
Ah, so moving PLD more firmly into manufacturing, not just R&D labs.
Exactly. That seems like a significant step scaling up for specific high-volume components.
And the other one, something about superconductors.
Right. In June 2023, researchers at the University of Houston apparently found a way using PLD to reduce failures in superconductors, making better superconductor tapes.
Which is important for actually using superconductors in real applications.
Absolutely. Improving reliability is key. It shows PLD isn't just making the materials, it's helping improve their fundamental performance for critical applications.
Now, shifting gears slightly, the report included a section discussing external factors. Specifically, it talked about the impact of past trade tensions, using Trump's tariff war as an example, on the electronics sector.
Right. And it's important to stress, we're just relaying what the source material described here, not taking a stance.
Absolutely. So according to the source, how did that period affect things?
Well, the source describes it as creating significant global trade volatility. It mentions tariffs being implemented on goods from various places, including allies, but with particularly high duties reported on imports from Vietnam and China. Steel, aluminum, auto parts were mentioned too.
And the electronics sector specifically.
The report states it was hit particularly hard, especially by the U.S.-China trade friction. It mentions tariffs up to 145% on certain Chinese goods like semiconductors and consumer electronics, and also China's retaliatory measures, duties, and restrictions on things like critical minerals.
What were the consequences, as reported?
The source suggests these tariffs disrupted supply chains, like just-in-time models increased component costs, potentially leading to higher prices for consumers and maybe reducing demand. Specific tariffs mentioned include 25% on semiconductors, 20% on lithium-ion batteries, 10–15% on consumer electronics.
So for a market like PLD, relying on specialized global components.
This kind of environment creates uncertainty, right? Potential volatility in the cost and availability of essential parts, whether it's laser components or the target materials themselves.
How did companies react, according to the source?
The report says companies responded by looking for new suppliers, maybe shifting sourcing to places like India, Mexico, or Vietnam, even redesigning products to avoid components hit by high tariffs.
But that's not always easy.
No, the source highlights the challenge of deep supply chain integration. Even if final assembly moves, many subcomponents might still originate from places like China. It mentioned firms like Apple and Dell expanding production outside China as examples of these shifts.
So the main point from the source here is
That in this kind of volatile trade environment, detailed market intelligence and research become even more critical. For finding suppliers, analyzing costs, adapting designs, forecasting demand, keeping track of regulations, strategic planning gets more complex.
okay, so that adds another layer to consider for companies in this space. Let's try to wrap things up then. What are the main takeaways from this deep dive into the PLD market report?
Okay, key takeaways. First, the global PLD systems market is definitely expanding. That projected 3.50% CAGR through 2033 signals clear growth.
Second,
Looking at the system types, combinatorial PLD is expected to stay dominant. Its strength in high-throughput experimentation for materials discovery and customization keeps it in high demand.
and component-wise.
PLD targets hold the biggest share. Makes sense, as they're the consumable source material essential for all the advanced applications driving the market.
And geographically.
North America leads currently in market share, but keep your eyes on Asia Pacific. That's where the fastest growth is projected.
It really is pretty amazing when you step back. This highly specialized technique, zapping materials with lasers in a vacuum.
Is quietly enabling huge advances, from the screens in our pockets to the potential foundations of quantum computing.
Yeah, and maybe a final thought for you, our listener, building on that. Consider how the growth in these areas, quantum materials, flexible electronics enabled by technologies like PLD.
Might not just mean better versions of what we have now. It could fundamentally change the kinds of devices, the
Right.
kinds of materials we interact with over the next decade or so.
Yeah.
We might be on the cusp of some really different technology, built layer by precise layer.
Definitely something to ponder. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the pulsed laser deposition systems market.
We hope unpacking this report gave you a clearer view of this critical enabling technology and where it's headed.
Keep an eye on developments in material science. It really is where a lot of the future is being built.